Welcome to Building Solid Foundations. We help you build the solid foundations for leadership, legacy, and life. I'm your host, Steve Matley, president of Coast to Coast Equities, and today we're going to have a little bit slightly different format. And the reason is, in several shows in the past, I've referenced the kind of projects that my company does, and we've had response back asking for more information on that. And I do teach this at different real estate investor groups around the area, and I thought today would be a good time to share that with all of you that may be wondering what's all in this, what does these kind of projects look like, and why do you do them? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about creative real estate investing secrets of the pros. This is the almost secret real estate techniques that the real estate moguls know. And it is accessible to normal people like you and I. This is why I do it with my partners. So I want to explain a little bit about where these projects come from and why we do them. Now, I started in real estate investing like most people, very typically doing buy a house, fix it up, hold it, live in it for a while, it appreciates, and now I have both the appreciation of the real estate market and I have the increase in value because of the fix-its I did to the house, because I bought a house that was in disrepair, fixed it up, lived in it, and then sold it. And that's a very typical real estate investment. So we'll bring a slide up here. You can see the list of typical real estate investments. We have your buy and hold your own residence and then sell it when the timing is right. Obviously, this works better if you buy it low in the market and sell it higher in the market. Again, if everybody knew that timing, that would be great, but some of it's a little guesswork. But if you stay in it long enough, the market works in your favor. Or you can buy and hold and then eventually sell a rental unit, one you've bought specifically for the purpose of renting out as opposed to living in it. Or you can buy and fix and then sell your residence. That's what I did. I bought homes. I tried to buy the worst home in the best neighborhood I could afford and then fix it up because there was a value in there once I could sell that after I'd fixed it. You could do the same thing with rental property. You buy and fix and then you rent out and then sell a rental property, or you can buy and fix and just sell the rental property, and that's what's known as the house flip, the fix and flip market. And a lot of that's been on television lately. We've seen a lot of specials out there where they talk to people and teach people about how to buy a home, do the repairs, and then sell it and try to make some money on it. It's become quite trendy. Unfortunately, when something becomes quite trendy, it makes it more inaccessible for everyone else because now there's a lot of competition and prices start to move up on it. So those are your typical real estate investments, and I think most people are familiar with those. Most people that have any knowledge of real estate at all understand what those are. And there's some advantages to the real estate. There is more than what real estate investing than what we see on television. A lot more to it, a lot deeper. And you'll find out that the so-called real estate moguls, they do things differently. You'll find out that the people you've heard of that have made fortunes in real estate do not do this by buying a house, fixing it up, and trying to flip it and make a little bit of money on the backside of it. There's a lot more to it. Now, some can do it with large volumes, but now they're becoming a funding organization as opposed to a real estate investing group. So let's get into the pros. What's the upside of doing just typical real estate? I don't discourage you from doing it. I think it's a great way to start and get into it, and you can build wealth that way. So it's relatively simple. It's really pretty simple to buy a place and then sell it when the market appreciates, or do some repairs to it and then sell it, or to rent it out. You don't need any special licenses or degrees or certificates or any specialized knowledge. This is something you can pretty much research through YouTube and talking to people and watching television shows. You can research a lot of this, read the books, and learn how to do this. There's nothing special that you need. You don't need to get a degree for it or anything like that. Your residence, where you live, everybody needs a place to live. That can double as an investment vehicle doing this. You can buy your home and the very home you live in becomes an investment vehicle. It's easily understood and accepted by most people. So if you want people to partner with you or work with you on it, most people understand it and they can buy into it pretty easily because there's nothing confusing about it. And there's a lot of expert help around. A lot of expert help if you're willing to pay for it. A lot of it's free too, so you can talk to title people, you can talk to escrow people, you can talk to real estate agents that understand this market. You can pay for help from, say, financial planners that understand the real estate market, from real estate attorneys. There is help out there to get pretty much anything you need to make this happen. And that's the upside of doing typical real estate investing. Now, let's talk about a little of some of the cons or the downside of doing typical real estate investing as opposed to other types. Well, with real estate investing, as with any investing, as with any kind of investing at all, there are risks. You have liability based on market conditions that can change on you. The real estate market ebbs and flows, as does every other market out there. Real estate's a commodity. The stock market ebbs and flows. Real estate market ebbs and flows. Other commodities like precious metals, they go high, they go low. You have the risk of loans. If you aren't able to pay your loans back, you're at risk of having foreclosure, and you could lose the property and the money you've put into it. So there's always risk in doing real estate, as there's anything else. Another risk is lack of capital, meaning that if you don't have a lot of money, it really limits what you can do. You have a very limited scope and potential to make money in real estate because it does take money to acquire the land and if to service the property if you're renting it out. Because sometimes it may not have a tenant in there. You have to continue to pay on that property until you get a tenant in there. And to do any repairs and fixes takes money. And so you do have to have some kind of capital available for it. Lack of expertise is a risk if you don't know what you're doing. But that's easily fixed, as we talked about a minute ago, by getting the experts that you know that can help you out. And then, of course, there's lack of time. For most of us, if you're not doing this professionally, you're just starting off, you have to do this in addition to whatever else you're doing. You have another job that's probably full-time. You have family obligations. You have your hobbies and your interests and trying to take care of your health and exercise and all the stuff you've got to do, your grocery shopping and your laundry. And somehow you've got to fit in this little side hustle of doing your real estate investing. And so if you don't have enough time to do it, it can be a problem because you do need to tend to it. This is not something that you can start and then kind of ignore. You have to tend to it and make sure it works. Again, there's help available, but then you have to share some of that upside with the people that are helping you. You have to bring partners onto it. So we have the typical real estate investments, and there's a lot of upside to these real estate investments, but there's some downside to these real estate investments. I have done not all of these, but most of these. I have originally purchased my own residence, as I said, and I've fixed it up and then sold it. I have had rental properties. I have had rental properties that have done extremely well. And I had one rental property that was a very bad experience for me with a tenant that stopped paying that eviction and an enormous expense when it came to a trash out and a rebuild, a rehab of the house, because they really destroyed my home. And that happens. Now, that was one incident, and I've had a lot of other properties out there. Most of them have come off very well. So, if the bad experience is on your very first house, that could be crippling for you. If that bad experience happens after you've got 6, 7, 8, 10, a dozen homes that you've been working on, it's easily absorbed because you've got the capital and the ability to handle that. So, I encourage you to do your research and find out if these are types of real estate investments for you. But we're going to talk about other types of real estate investments because there's a couple of other types out there that are very different with a much higher potential. And people don't get into them because they really don't understand them or know them very well. So we're going to take a break in a minute, but before we get there, I'm going to lay out where we're going. And that is, we're going to look at some more advanced real estate investments. More advanced means these are at a higher level. So kind of look at these typical investments and take them up a notch, plus them. What that means is instead of a single house, perhaps it's multifamily, a duplex, a triplex, a quadplex. You can actually go much larger, but those become really expert projects when you get to very large buildings. I would say multifamily, well, once you get past 4, it gets a little more tricky. So we're going to get into some of those when we come back from the break, and I'm going to talk to you about other advanced real estate investment options. So I'm Steve Matley. I'm your host for Building Solid Foundations. I'm the president of Coast to Coast Equities, and today we're talking about creative real estate investing secrets of the pros. I got a lot more to cover with you. Don't go anywhere.
If you love them enough to relearn math so you can teach them math, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
You made your house a reality. Homeschooling yourself on loans, color-coding listings, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. If you can ace house hunting, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.
Hi, welcome back to Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley, president of Coast to Coast Equities, and today we're walking through creative real estate investing secrets of the pros. And again, this is kind of in response to some requests I've had to explain a little bit of some of these projects that I mentioned on some of the other TV shows when I'm talking to other guests. So before we get there, I'm walking through basic real estate investment types, and then we're going to move into some more advanced stuff. So we talked about typical real estate investing before the break, and we got into a little bit of the more advanced. So let's talk about some of the more advanced real estate investments that are coming up. So this will be the fourth slide we have with some information on it for you. Hopefully it shows up on the screen there. So more advanced, we can buy and then either live in or rent out and hold multifamily. So you can buy a multifamily unit, say a 3-plex or a 4-plex, and you can rent out the other units and live in one yourself. And actually, it's your home, but it's also an income property at the same time. And you hold on to that and then sell it when the market's appreciated. You can do the same thing if you buy one, just like we did with a house, where it needs a little bit of help. So you buy one that's in a little bit of disrepair, you fix it up, you upgrade it, maybe it's out of date, and then you rent out those units, you live in one yourself, and then you sell it. You can buy and lease. You don't live in it, you just buy income property straight up of multifamily, you lease and hold, or you can do it light commercial. You can buy and hold and manage light commercial properties. So I'm talking about retail units, maybe suites in a business park. You can buy these types of properties, buy a business park building, you can buy a suite in a business park, you can buy a small strip mall or a single office building, maybe an old bank building or something, and convert it over, and you can actually then use that as commercial property that you can lease out to tenants. Cut it up into things, have a real estate office in there, maybe a co-working place in there, a small meeting area, different things you can do and manage that property and make some money on that. You can buy and sell. You could buy empty commercial property, fix it up, fill it up with tenants, and then immediately turn around and sell it. That increases the value of that property because now you've bought an empty building and you're selling a building that's fully leased with long-term leases in it. And people will buy that property for significantly more than what you purchased it for. Or you can even do things that are residential, like say, buy a piece of property, and then design and build a house and sell that house. It's known as spec homes. Spec homes, speculative. What that means is we build a house like a custom home, but instead of building it for the end user doesn't come until after we finish the house, and then we sell it. So there are people that make a good living doing spec homes and building several a year and making money on each one of those. So what are the upsides for doing that? Well, the upsides to doing advanced is a lot of the same things that we saw in the typical, except you've got even more upside as far as the profit potential. So you still don't need any licenses or degrees or special certificates or knowledge if you're building a limited number of homes a year. So if you're doing large commercial or if you're going to be doing tracts of houses, that's going to be a different deal. You're going to need something different on that. If you're doing rentals that are, say, 50, 60, 70 doors, that's going to be something different. But if you're doing small, if you're doing the 3, 4, 5-plex, if you're doing a small commercial building, a small standalone type commercial building, or a small business suite, you don't need anything special, no certificates, no licenses, no special entities, nothing like that to make that happen. You just need to find the experts to help you. You can still make your residence double as an investment vehicle if you've got these multifamily deals. It's still easily understood by most people. Most people understand the idea of a light commercial being leased out to a dry cleaners or a restaurant or something like that. They understand the idea of having a triplex or a fourplex that you'd rent out to different tenants. There's a lot of expert help around if you're willing to pay for it, just like there is on doing the typical real estate investments. But there's a better return and a lot more leverage than your typical real estate investments because you've got more units. So for example, if you have one house and you rent it out, you have a single tenant. Your risk is if that tenant moves out, you have no income until you get another tenant in. If you have a fourplex and a tenant moves out, you have 3 other tenants paying rent while that one unit is being fixed up to be re-rented. So you're not in that same level of exposure or risk. And you have 4 times the amount of rent coming in. So it pays for more of the building. So there's a lot of upside to doing these more advanced. A lot of people want to do these are not sure how to get into them. So there again, you need to find the real estate agents, your tax planning experts that understand it and work with them to make sure you do it right and understand the laws when it comes to what happens if you get more than 4 units. 4 units and less, you can get a residential mortgage on it. When you get over 5 units, you're now commercial, and that's an entirely different set of rules when it comes to qualifying for that funding. What are the downsides of doing this? So next slide, we have problems with more advanced real estate, and you'll see it looks just like all the problems we had with the typical real estate. We have our risk. We have a problem if we have lack of capital. We have a problem if we have a lack of expertise. We have a problem if we have a lack of time. Just put a big exponent on that risk. It just becomes larger. Just like your profit potential becomes much larger, your risk becomes much larger as well, accordingly. So you have to think through it and make sure that you're prepared and know what you're doing when you get into it. However, if you want to really move past just making a little bit of money on the side with real estate, you need to look at those kind of projects, advanced projects. But there's a even better way to go. And when we get into that, I want to, before we leave that, let you know that tax and legal rules could be different when you're doing the advanced real estate projects. Go to the experts, understand what the rules are, understand what the regulations are. Talk to a tax accountant, talk to a tax attorney, talk to title people. You want to talk to a real estate agent that really understands this. Now, most real estate agents really don't understand these advanced projects. And it's not a knock on real estate agents. Most of them work in the residential world of single family homes. That's what they're trained to do. That's what they understand. So you want to find one that specializes in commercial property or specializes in multifamily in your specific geographic area. When you get to larger projects, and we're going to talk about expert level real estate investing in the next segment, we're going to start getting into some of that. But for this, I want to just leave you with the advanced real estate understanding that there is a lot more than just real estate involved in some of these projects. You may have to understand a little bit about property management. Property management is different than just real estate investing. There's a different set of skills and rules and regulations that go with that. Different than just renting a house out to somebody. You also may have to understand a little more about construction. If you're doing spec homes, you need to understand the construction business and how that works. It's not just as simple as I buy a piece of land, I put a house on it and sell it. That process of putting a house on it involves permits, it involves fees, it involves inspections, plan reviews. You have to hire architects, civil engineers, structural engineers, mechanical engineers, landscape architects, general contractors, the trade contractors that are doing the work on the job site. There's a lot of parts and pieces to that needs to be managed, and the truth is that can become a full-time job. And the people I know that do really well in this business building the spec homes, that is their business, and they may build 4 to 5 a year. Now there's a limit legally to how many you can build without being a registered general contractor, because you actually don't need to be a general contractor to build a spec home and sell it. You're an owner builder. But there's a limit under the law of how many you can build, and that varies by state. So you want to check your local state regulations and find out what is that limit. And you'll also find it's very difficult to build more than 3 or 4 of these a year anyways, because the truth is it's going to take 90 to 120 days minimum to try and get these projects done, and it's hard to manage more than one at a time. So when we come back, we're going to get into some expert, a little bit talking about some of the expert real estate investing and where the real money is made in this. And we're going to set this up for part 2. We're going to finish most of this in part 2. I'm Steve Matley, President of Building Coast to Coast Equities, Inc. This is Building Solid Foundations. We'll be right back.
If you love them enough to relearn math so you can teach them math, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
You made your house a reality. Homeschooling yourself on loans, color-coding listings, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. If you can ace house hunting, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.
Welcome back to Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley, President of Coast to Coast Equities, and today we're talking about creative real estate investing secrets of the pros. And really kind of moving towards explaining some of the kind of projects that I and my partners do with our company in response to some of the questions we've had from viewers. So we've been talking in this episode about typical real estate investing that really easily understood by most people and is accessible to most people. And then we moved into kind of advanced real estate investments and what makes them a little trickier and what makes them with more upside and where some of the more risk is. So what I want to get into is kind of set this up, because we're going to finish this in next week's episode, because there's enough here that's not going to fit in one episode. So next week we're really going to get into the meat of those specialized projects. But what I want to do is set up what I would call expert level real estate investment projects. So there should be a slide coming up on your screen that you can see, and it's a list of different types of expert real estate investments. And this is by no means an exhaustive list of the type of projects, but these are very normal for the high-end developers and real estate, what you'd call the real estate moguls out there. So the first is we can buy and do a tenant improvement. A TI is a tenant improvement, or a BTS is a build-to-suit. And that means we buy a piece of land and we either take a existing building and fix the inside of it to fit what a tenant needs. Perhaps we buy a commercial building and then we fix the inside to fit a restaurant, and then we fix it for a hair salon or fix it for a dry cleaner or something like that. Or we can take an empty piece of land and build it to the specifications of the person who's going to lease the building. Obviously that would have to be a long-term lease. That's called a build-to-suit. And then we would lease that and manage it. We would be the property managers, and we would have recurring income coming in from those leases month after month after month. And once we do that, we could actually lease that up and then sell it to someone else who will actually manage the property. So a little bit like a fix and flip, meaning we buy the land, we build this up, get a tenant in it, and then sell the land and the tenant contract to someone else. We can do the same thing for large multifamily. When I say large multifamily, I'm talking about these complexes that have dozens, if not hundreds, of doors in them. This is multiple buildings. There's usually a swimming pool complex. There's a clubhouse, a lot of amenities that go with this, parking structures or carports that go with this. And these are large multifamily. Sometimes they can be urban high-rises with a garage underneath or off to the side. Obviously, a lot of money in those. So you can do those kind of projects. Build those, you purchase that, and then lease or manage them and then sell them. You can build those from the ground up. A lot of companies make a lot of money buying land, building these large urban housing projects, and then selling them off. They can do the same with a commercial building. Commercial building could be an office building, or it could be a warehouse, a logistics center, manufacturing facility, a lot of different things we can do, or say a business park. We can do the same thing with multifamily and mixed use. Mixed use is where we have residential and commercial in the same structure or the same complex. So think about a building where there are businesses on the street level and people live above it. That would be a mixed use, and that is an expert level land investment project. We can buy, entitle, and sell raw land. Now that is the kind of project that we're going to be getting into. It's the kind of project my company specializes in. We can buy, entitle, and develop the land. That's where we don't just entitle it and sell the land in a different legal condition. We actually would then develop it. Development means we bring the utilities in, the streets, the curbs, the gutters, and grade the lots out, and then sell that to a builder. Or we can keep it and do the next step, which is actually build the homes on it. That's tract home building. We can build homes on it, or we can build a commercial building on it. We can do the same and build it out and then lease it. Say it's a commercial building that we bought it, we entitled it, we developed it, then we built it out, then we rented it out, we've leased it out, and now we're managing that. And then we can either hold that or we can sell that. If we hold it, we have long-term income. If we sell it, then we have a capital gain on the backside. And we can do the same thing with multi-parcel type projects. We can do large complex campus type stuff if we want to, and those become very, very complicated to do, but there's a lot of upside in them, and the real estate moguls out there make a lot of money doing this. So in the next episode, we're going to get deeper into these type of investments, and I'm going to go particularly deep into the one which is the buy, entitle, and sell raw land, which is sometimes known as a land flip. This is what my company specializes in. When we do these projects, we find ways to mitigate the risk, because there is a lot of risk in them, and try to maximize the return on the backside, because there's ways to do that by leveraging the structure of the project. We also try to do it by funding it entirely through equity rather than debt instead of loans, and the equity usually comes from syndications. And what that means is we bring investor capital in from just people like you and me, and it allows the common person that wants to be into these advanced projects, these expert projects, to come into them and participate in the upside of them without having to go through the decades it takes to learn the complexities of these type of projects. So hopefully that wets your whistle a little bit and gets you interested in what we're going to be talking about in the next episode. And that's where we're really going to answer that question. What are these projects about you keep referring to on your other shows, Steve? So we're going to look at real estate opportunities for the non-moguls in part 2 of this 2-part series on creative real estate investing secrets of the pros. I'm your host, Steve Matley, president of Coast to Coast Equities, and we'll see you in the next episode to finish this up.